I'm Steve Hill, and we're going to talk about stuff today. And I got Nick here with me, the producer of our podcast. Hey, Nick, how are you?
Doing pretty good. You know what? Actually, I think I might as well change my name to Steve because there's a lot of Steves here at Grace Community Fellowship.
You know, there are a lot of Steves. In fact, the word Steve means crowned one. Really?
Would I make a good Steve?
I think you'd make an awesome Steve.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Steve. All right. Hey, today I want to talk about some stuff here, and I want to talk about how churches can engage their community. And I'm going to talk about how our church, Grace Community Fellowship, has engaged the community around us and the people of our community. So one of the things that I hear sometimes is that the church is like a holy huddle. We show up on Sunday and we kind of circle around and sing some songs and listen to a mediocre sermon from Steve, and then we just do our own thing. And that's a travesty in some way because we need to engage our community and not be seen as the enemy or us versus them, but we want to be able to point people to Christ and have a way to do that. So just a little bit of history background. Churches have a reputation for doing the holy huddle thing where they just are very centered on maybe their building or themselves. So just centered on themselves. Church is all about me. Church is all about me reading the Bible and praying. And in my opinion, what that does is it takes what I would call outreach or evangelism or pointing people to Christ out of the picture. And that is so easy to do because it's difficult and it's hard work to engage the culture. And you have to face a lot of rejections to embrace people who are far away from Jesus sometimes. And that's okay. Jesus was rejected. Paul was rejected. So it's just part of life. So I would say about 100 years ago, there was a movement in America called the Fundamentalist Movement. And someday I'll do a podcast just on that. But they were wanting to hang on to the fundamentals of the faith. That's a good thing, like Jesus is real, the virgin birth is true, the Bible is true, and those kinds of things. Well, they seem to have a bad attitude about it. You know, just we're right, you're wrong, very arrogant, and it didn't come across well to people who were not followers of Jesus. And those early fundamentalists got beat up, I would say, in the media. Just hammered on. And it caused them to cocoon, I would call it, and to withdraw from society. And that was a huge mistake. And what began to happen was they began to say, well, we just don't want to be, we want to make sure we're not of the world. Well, there's a phrase in the New Testament that says we need to be in the world, but not of the world. And they were just withdrawing from the world. Total mistake. And today we see those repercussions as churches sometimes withdraw from the community. And it's a travesty. So when I came to Grace Community Fellowship in year 2000, so nearly 21 years ago, I knew that especially in this community, we really needed as a church to have a way and a process, or that's probably the wrong way to say it, but a way to which to engage the community around us. And so one of the phrases that I like is that we need to do good works in our community because it opens the door to the good news. Good works opens the door to the good news. So we can do good works, but our purpose in that is developing relationships with people, friendships, so that we can earn the right and trust to talk about Jesus Christ. So some of our early efforts included we would feed people under the Washington Jefferson Street Bridge. Do you know where that is, Nick?
Yes.
Downtown? Yeah. So before you moved here, there were what was under the bridge was different today. And so we would feed sometimes 700 people on a Saturday. And it was just a way for us to be involved in the community. We partnered with another organization to do that, and we called it Under the Bridge. And it was a good thing. And then in the very early 2000s, we started to focus on Willow Gillespie School, which is just down the street from us, and began to interact and develop a relationship with the principal at that time and other teachers there. And I would say and that relationship continues to this day. And I would say it's been highly successful in many ways. So a brief story. A number of years ago, we showed up to give Christmas gifts, not to students, but to teachers. And we placed a lot of emphasis on rallying, supporting the teachers. So we were handing out a bunch of gifts in the school library, and I leave the building, and I get in my car, and the school secretary speeds around the corner and parks right behind me, jumps and prevents me from backing out, jumps out of her car and runs up to my window. I thought I'd done something wrong. I thought I was in trouble. And she's knocking on my window, and I roll down. She goes, "You're the pastor, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "We love you." And she began to tell me how much of a difference we made in encouraging teachers at the Willow Gillespie School. It was one of those eye-opening moments where I saw, this, in my mind, minor effort produced a sense of trust and appreciation. So we would give teachers at Christmas time $100 to a store to buy supplies. Last year, not before COVID, we would provide for them breakfast one morning in service before school started, lunch maybe as well. And we're just there. One of our pastors, Josh Dobler, constantly goes to the school and is a lunch buddy to kids in the lunchroom. So that, I believe, is just one way to engage the community, at least that we have. Another way we are engaging our community is with the Hiv Alliance, which is an organization here in Eugene. And a number of years ago, like 15, I was approached about partnering and assisting with the Hiv Alliance. And what makes this so interesting is that we're a conservative theologically church, and the Hiv Alliance would be on the other end of the spectrum of things. But we decided, hey, we can jump in and support what they do because their core purpose is to help people, care for people who have AIDS. That was the core thing. And so our church would go down and make medical kits for them. We worked frequently on their building, painted it, installed stuff. Our church staff helped their office move all their furniture once. Things like that, we would team up with the Hiv Alliance. And at Christmas, we, for many years, have provided their clients with gifts. And we've even interviewed some of their clients about their relationship with God and talked to them about who is Jesus. So it's been just an amazing and different kind of partnership we've had. A number of years ago, we made a new effort to be involved with Every Child. And Every Child is an organization here in Eugene that helps kids who are in the foster care system. And this is what we did, Nick. It was pretty amazing. So I loaned them one of our employees and paid for it for a year. I mean, that's a pretty large financial commitment. And because of that, we began to overhaul some of the DHS offices here where the foster kid systems run through, and we would redo their offices and where kids had to wait. And it grieved my heart that they were telling me children would come in who need to be placed in a foster home, and they would sit at a desk for 8 hours because they can't find foster parents. So we made not only efforts to engage and help that organization long term, but help foster families provide food and respite care and many other things. And that bled over into helping with Safe Families. So Safe Families tries to help parents before it is necessary that the foster system takes over. So if you can help a family be stable, it eliminates the need for the foster care, for a kid to go into foster care. You just don't want to get into the system to begin with. And so we have a family here at Grace, several who help other families who just need assistance. I'll give you an example. A woman has 3 kids. She's a single mom. She goes into the hospital for surgery. Who's going to take care of her kids? Well, it could be, if she didn't have any family here, that those kids are going to end up in the foster care system. Well, what would it be if a couple from our church took those kids in for 3 weeks? And that's what we started doing. I just think it's amazing. And as soon as COVID, it's changed everything. But I really want to double down on those efforts with foster kids and with Safe Families to help those families. I'm just going to say they don't have a lot of family support here, or they're what we might say is the working poor. So that's just a way that we can engage our community. But what is key is long-lasting relationships. So let me give you an example of that just from my life as a pastor. So we got involved with the Hiv Alliance, and I had lunch with the director of the Hiv Alliance and would interact with her occasionally. I had her come to our board meeting and just talk about the Hiv Alliance. She's not a Christian, although she was very willing to come to our church and just talk about what they do. And then a number of years ago at Grace Community Fellowship, we wrote them a check for $10,000. And I'll never forget the day that I showed up with one of those, you know how at golf tournaments, Nick, they have those great big checks, that look like, they're just huge, like 8 feet across. And I had one of those, and I walked into her office and gave it to her. She jumped up, cried, and hugged me. I mean, and I think that's the beauty of being involved in your community. You get to know people and develop a relationship with people, friendship. At that time, as a church, we started something called Impact 40, and our goal was to raise $40,000 to give away to various groups that we were partnering with to make things better for them and to help our community. And we gave $10,000 to the Hiv Alliance. We gave $10,000 to Dove Medical, and we gave $10,000 to a couple of other organizations. At the time at Grace Community Fellowship, we were way behind financially. And so we just made a big effort to get funds to give to our community, even though we ourselves were behind financially. And here's the remarkable thing. Not only did we catch up as a church, we exceeded. And people caught the vision of being involved in the community. I think one of the key ways that a church can be involved in their community is to identify one or two groups that you want to have that relationship with, because the needs are so vast in the community that you just can't do everything. So let's do one or two things really well. That's why I really want us to jump with efforts toward children, because I see that as so critical right now in our society. And so that means the school, safe families, every child, just being involved with children in that way. It's critical that I've been told that children begin to read by 3rd grade, because if they don't have that certain reading level by that age, by that grade, 3rd grade, then it's going to be very difficult on them. So that's why we want to make sure we engage the school, that we're helpful with tutoring and just reading to kids as well. I often think about what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount: let your good works shine so that they will glorify your Father. And the purpose of our good works is not to make us feel good about ourselves, but our purpose of our good works is to point people to the Savior, to point people to God. It's not about us. And so sometimes we do things behind the scenes that nobody ever knows, and we're not going to talk about them up front or try to promote ourselves, because we want all the honor and credit to go to the Lord, not to ourselves. So engaging the community is just what we do here at Grace Community Fellowship. It needs to be part of our lifestyle, part of our DNA as followers of Jesus. I think there are a lot of personal ways that people can engage their community as well. So an individual can always volunteer at their school. An individual can be involved in the Eugene mission. You don't need the church, Grace Community Fellowship, or whatever church you attend to be the structure for you to go and volunteer to do those things. And also, followers of Jesus can initiate where they work, wherever they live, to do good works, not as an end of themselves, but good works so that the door would be open to the good news. And that's what I think is very critical and important as we engage our community. Nick, what are some of your thoughts?
Something I've been thinking about as we've been talking here, Steve, is there's an example I have, and then there's kind of a bigger issue, or I guess topic, that I want to bring up, and that is the idea of servanthood. And when we're talking about engaging our communities, something that I see a lot of churches doing and Christian institutions is maybe putting together a sort of serve day or just organizing a big event where a bunch of people from the church come together and serve at different sites, locations. And it's usually once or twice a year. And I think those things are great, but I also think that those things are so good, why aren't we doing them more often? And that kind of speaks into the larger issue, which I think is the lack of a culture of servanthood in the church. And this is something I've just kind of realized in the last few months, because over the last year or so, I've been having sort of a faith overhaul, you could say, where I realized how lukewarm my faith was, how comfortable I was as a Christian, and just had to come face to face with that and realize, do I want to live complacent and comfortable for the rest of my life, or do I want to challenge myself to truly pursue God and have a relationship and live out what I'm saying I believe? So in that process, something I've learned is the importance of servanthood, which growing up in the church, I didn't necessarily see modeled to me super well. And I feel like maybe a lot of people can relate to that, which is you see a few select people in your church that are willing to serve, and usually it's the older people, and that's amazing. And that's pretty much wherever you go, you're going to see old people involved in the church and carrying a lot of the weight with hospitality, other things, programs. And the sad part is I feel a perspective that maybe a lot of people take, and I definitely took, was I don't have to worry about serving now. I don't have to worry about tithing right now, because when I'm older, when I have money, when I don't have stuff going on, I'll be fully available and capable of doing that. And that's just the wrong way to look at it. And in the church, there should be a culture of servanthood where we're attempting to be like Jesus in that way and be selfless. Because when it comes to life, I lived selfishly for the past 21 years. And then this last year, I'm finally trying to live selflessly and not always thinking about me and what I want. And it has been so much more fulfilling and rewarding, and serves to deepen my relationships that I have. And it just shows people that I truly care about them. And that ties into the idea of servanthood, because when you truly intentionally serve someone without, like you were saying, Steve, the want for acclaim, the Pharisee perspective, you could say, doing it for the recognition, it's just so much more beautiful. But if you're listening to this podcast, I just want to challenge you. If you're a parent, if you're a student, if you're an elderly person, no matter what age or demographic you are, I just want to challenge you to boldly serve and set an example for people around you, people in your family, because that truly will make an impact. And seeing someone model that is rare right now. So if you want to be a light in your community, a light in your family, just go ahead and start serving, and just do it out of the good of your own heart, and other people will follow. And that's how you build a culture.
I think that's so spot on, Nick. And parents can take their kids to the Eugene Mission. I know a family that they go down to the Eugene Mission and take their elementary school kids with them and serve there. It's just modeling, right? And it's hopefully training. And I think one of the things a church can do is have some structure to help people learn about servanthood and learn about serving, and also learn to do it on their own, that they don't need to be dependent. We want people to live for Christ in their workplace, in their schools. And so you can serve there and serve your own family, serve your own neighborhood. I think one of the things that sometimes people get mixed up is that they think when I serve somebody else, they might turn them into their project. You don't want other people to think that, I don't want my neighbor to think that he's my project. I like my neighbor. I love that guy. I love those folks. And so it's because I have a relationship with them, and that Christ served me, and I want to serve them as well. But I think you're right. A lot of times in churches, quite frankly, the old folks, older than you, Nick, I don't know what you think old is, let's just say over 50, that often they carry the bulk of the serving. Unfortunately, sometimes they get to the point where they say, hey, my time is done. Somebody else needs to step up to this plate, and that's wrong too. Serving is a lifetime thing, just not until you get to retirement age. And also people who are like 22, the joy of serving needs to become part of their spiritual growth. Sometimes we think we grow spiritually just by knowing a lot of stuff. It's actually putting it into practice. I have fought this battle for years that people think, I just need to go deep. Going deep is actually putting love into action. That's what deep is about. And that's why we engage our community, because we can serve other people because we love God and we love others. That's why I love our purpose statement. Love people where they're at and help them follow Jesus. So whether they're under the bridge, at the HIV Alliance clinic, at the school, in the foster family, we just want to love well and point people to Christ. But that's going to mean some action steps, right? You got to serve. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Some people may feel that the easiest way to serve is just by giving money. And that's kind of in some ways, that is a very beautiful and a powerful thing. And giving generously is amazing. But also something that's just so much more precious and valuable that you can give is just your time and attention. A really easy way to serve is just by listening to someone, because there's plenty of people out there who are just lonely and want to talk to someone, have someone hear them and care about them. So having a relationship, building a relationship is in and of itself an act of service. So.
Yeah, totally. And just, I think a little hint here about engaging people generally is to just ask people, tell me your story. And I've never had anybody that would say, I don't want to tell you my story. They want to tell you where they were born or where they grew up, what high school they went to, or what they like to do. People will talk. And that's the beginning of a relationship. Tell me your story. Hopefully they'll ask you yours and you can tell them your story. Okay, we want to be a church that engages our community, serves our community, loves on our community, and we want it to be an ongoing thing where we really serve out of a place of genuine love for Jesus and a love for people. Hey, I'm Steve, and that was a lot of stuff today to think about. I hope that you choose to be a servant, and grace and peace be with you today and every day.